Thanks for staying with us. You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Over the past 1 month, Nigerians have been swamped with a relentless case of accusations and counter-accusations from the Senate over a case of sexual harassment leveled against Senate President Godswill Akpabio by Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, who represents Kogi Central. Critically, that case has gone through several levels of transformation without seemingly addressing the original allegation itself. Many Nigerians have gone on record to say that the case of Senators Akpoti-Uduaghan and the Senate President summarizes the plight of women who have tried and still trying to find a place on the table of Nigerian politics. Joining us now to have a conversation, including our documentary Double Minority, is President Ahmed, frontline journalist, media entrepreneur, and managing director of Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. Good morning, Kadiria.
Good morning,
Good to have you on the morning show.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And let me first apologize that I missed the premiere of your film.
Yeah, I heard you made it to the cocktails
on Thursday. But I've had very fantastic reviews. You know, everybody's talking about it. You know, the timeliness of the subject matter, yes. The style that you adopted. Shaya Baku, I believe, directed. Is that correct?
No, I directed.
You directed.
I directed.
Okay.
Shaya was sort of co-producing.
Okay.
And I had 2 other women who were sort of assistant unit directors. Because, of course, we shot across Nigeria during the elections. We had crews in the east, crews in the southwest, crews in the north. So it was a multi-city production team.
Wow. Just like your first documentary on COVID, it was multi-city too.
As well.
Okay, so 2 questions to kick off the conversation,
Yes.
Double minority, that's what it's called.
So I mean, the issue
I was going to ask you, is the pun intended?
Yes,
is it like
absolutely.
double jeopardy? And the second part will be that you focused on women in this documentary, and I know that shall we say, the woman of the month, you know, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, you know, was also interviewed in it.
Yes.
Did you see this thing coming, or was it just coincidental?
Okay, so I mean, this topic is speaking, the documentary is speaking to issues of today, but the truth is that the issue of women being marginalized in politics and other things is a timeless issue. Absolutely. If you think in terms of even when women got the vote, even here in Nigeria, it was way after men, and in parts of the north, way after the women in the south also got the vote. So the marginalization of women in positions of authority, in positions of leadership, is a long-running saga. And so I think it's just a pure coincidence that at the time that this documentary is being released, this issue is also on the front burner. It's taken a bit longer than I thought to actually release it, because we shot most of it during the last elections.
Oh, really?
But shortly after the elections, I took ill. And I went away for about 9 months. And so post-production on the documentary actually came to a standstill. And then when I came back, we started again. And then coincidentally, the issues are bubbling because you now have a woman with the courage to actually say a lot of the things that are going on. What surprised me about this documentary, I think more than anything, was that when we were documenting it, we knew we were talking about issues that were important and keep happening. But we didn't think we would become a contemporary record of sort of what is going on. But also an archival record in many ways, because somebody like Pa Adebanjo, whose daughter we featured in that documentary, the last interview he granted ever, you know, was in this documentary before he died. Simisola, one of the, you know, amazing young girls who ran, very brave girl. She was pregnant when she was, you know, contesting for a seat in the State House of Assembly in Ekiti. I was personally on sort of the shoot where we recorded her activities. She died last year. Wow, and so again, you know, we have sort of immortalized her story and her courage and the sort of inspiration she provided, particularly for young girls. Who in fact are not a double minority, sometimes are a triple minority, because in addition to being women, in addition to sort of being women in the political boys club that is politics in Nigeria, they're also young. And sometimes they also get punished for their age. So in that sense, you know, I'm very proud of the documentary because I think it will stand the test of time. It will be a historical record of, you know, the fights. And you hear these stories through the women themselves. Yeah. So we are with them in the field. We are experiencing in real life what they are experiencing. We're seeing people demand for money from them. We're seeing women, people say to them, but you are a woman, why do you want to run? You know, we're seeing people tell them things like, I should have been the one to make you pregnant. I mean, that was something that was said to Simi by a politician. So these stories are real. And I think what the documentary does is bring it home. We kind of all know it, but to kind of see it in black and white and visually, I think is a little bit shocking for many people.
Okay, now looking at this documentary as well as recent incidents, you know, with Senator Natasha Akpoto-Uduaghan, where would you say we're headed to in terms of inclusion for women in politics, also as it pertains to women also being part of that support for other women?
We are regressing, frankly. And the thing is, I'm actually shocked that this regression is happening under President Ahmed Tinubu, because traditionally he has been somebody who sort of championed women in politics, including his wife, who he sort of encouraged and pushed to go and sit in the Nigerian Senate. So both their reactions have been shocking to me, and I'm wondering why that is. I mean, Mrs. Tinubu, I don't even want to dwell on, because in many ways she doesn't have the power. But the president has the power to basically signal that he will not accept, you know, this sort of behavior, particularly because we're talking about a president who is from his party. And in many ways, whether we like it or not, he's the leader of the APC. And I say this because I also happen to know that when distinguished Senator Natasha was denied her ticket, and she went to the courts and won her case so that she could take her rightful place in the Senate, I happen to know people ran to President Tinubu to try and get him to intercede with the courts to scuttle this, and he's absolutely said no. He said, no, she won her elections, let her take her rightful seat. So to go from that to this deafening silence, because he's been silent. We haven't...
would have preferred him to...
I think we keep talking about this separation of powers. Yeah. It's true, but on the issues that matter to them, they don't separate these powers. They lobby hard. You understand what I mean? We just saw what happened in Rivers State. Where was separation of powers in that? So the point I'm making is the things that matter to them, they do whatever they need to do to push these things through. We saw a vote in the Senate. If the president had not wanted a vote, there would have been no vote. So it is important that men in power, in particular, understand that while today this might seem as if it is for their good that they're doing this, eventually the chickens come home to roost. We've seen it again and again. They have wives, they have daughters, they have nieces. And what happens when you embolden sexual abuse or any sort of gender-based discrimination is that it becomes a culture. And that culture then permeates everything that we do. So you will find it in classrooms, you will find it in village meetings, you will find it everywhere. And you never know when that will backfire. So that's why it's important that we signal the right thing. And I'm shocked at also the Senate President Akpabio. All men that I know, but especially men of standing, would normally jump quickly to deal with any allegation that tarnishes their image. They will not obfuscate, they will not look for excuses, they will not... But we've gone from suspension to a recall. We have not, like you said in your introduction, addressed the central issue, which is the allegation. Why is that?
Yeah, but it's been addressed now, isn't it? That's why we had the other altercation between...
Well, how do you address... No, let's be logical about this. How do you even call for that sort of hearing without the person who made the principal allegations? Let's be honest.
But she declined to go, no?
No. She's not declined to go. Her suspension says she can't go anywhere near the Senate.
They said that she can't come anywhere near the
They can't have their cake and eat it.
She declined the first invitation on the
But
on the other one.
on sexual harassment.
That
I
was
guess
not-
it.
yeah.
Yes, so I get
Yeah.
it, but I'm saying that she did decline.
I also
You see-
think it's important to speak about that because there was an injunction from the court on the sitting of that committee.
Okay, that's fine, but
And
it's
if
listed
she,
now, but that's
yes,
fine, that's
but
okay.
if she believes in the court's judgment, then she must decline.
That's fine.
You see,
But
all
I want
this
to ask a
rigmarole,
question.
truthfully,
Yeah.
it's a rigmarole. The reason why this is so confused is because the Senate has done everything in its power to actually stop a hearing on the sexual harassment allegation. And this is a man, by the way, with a track record. We've had at least one other senior woman, the former MD of the NNDC, not only accuse him, but claiming that she slapped him.
Yeah, but
because
it was an allegation.
what he did. It is an allegation.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it isn't. But the point is, if again and again we have one man being accused of certain things, even he has a responsibility to Nigerians to clear his name. Forget about what other people say, but he himself has a responsibility.
Yeah, but when you raise the issue of the former MD of NDDC,
yes,
who also made an allegation for which the Senate President has said that he will go to court if no matter late. I'm coming.
Okay.
I'm saying that, what do you say to those who say if you want to use his past, allegedly, to judge him, why don't you use Senator Natasha's past in the issue of him and Reno Omokri, for which she reportedly deleted the offensive thing and made amends.
Okay,
or you think that didn't happen?
No. I think there was, she did not accuse Reno of sexual harassment. No, she accused him of hitting on her. They are two different things. Harassments tend to happen where there's a position of authority and power.
Yeah, but she used sexual harassment in a video herself.
She said he hit on her and he's only angry because she turned him down. That's what I saw on her Facebook, right? And we could try and get her, persuade her to put it out again.
Okay, that's fine. Go on.
The point is there's a position of authority. The Senate President is the third most powerful man in Nigeria.
I get that point, Kaduria. I'm saying, let us also be fair to men, and I'm not using Akpabio.
And I'm saying to you that fairness only comes when there is a proper investigation.
Yeah.
And the Senate has done everything in its power to prevent it from happening. If he had allowed it, who knows? If distinguished Senator Natasha is making this up, an investigation would have brought that out very quickly.
Which was why I raised the issue of Reno, because it was totally all made up. Hold on, let me just finish, Adesuwa. But it was totally made up. Hold on 1 second so that you can come in after me. It was the submission on that matter, which they are using the same way that others use the case of the former MD of NDDC, is that case, whether it was hitting on her,
let me tell you the difference.
Was that it never happened at all?
No, we don't know that. The Reno claimed he had a ticket. Somebody claimed he went and printed
you're
it.
revisiting what happened?
No, I saw somebody saying that he went and printed it, and we know it can be done. The thing is, Reno also has a history, right? Let's not get into that. He happens to be a good friend of mine.
No, I'm just saying that
so when you use one
example,
I don't want to go into what Reno has done that means we can also question his credibility.
Oh, yeah, sure,
but the point I'm making is that we're now talking about people in positions of authority. The Senate President has standing.
Oh, yes.
The Senate President is a powerful man. We can see it now from a recall that has gathered 250 signatures supposedly in 2 days. 250,000, when the elections themselves only brought up, after months of campaign, a few signatures. So the point is, look, last week I spent it traveling around Kaduna and Jigawa. I'm doing a bit of work for UNDP, some stakeholder engagement, trying to put together a peace and conflict framework that the northern western governors want to be able to look at the issues that they're going through. What I found on those trips, and I'm going to the other 5 northwestern states in the next few weeks, is extremely disturbing when it comes to gender and sexual-based violence. We have an epidemic. In a place like Hadejia, there's a serial killer right now.
Where is that?
Hadejia in Jigawa State. Okay. There's a serial killer right now that is targeting newly married women. He goes into their houses during the day when the husbands have gone to work. He rapes them, ties them up, and slaughters them. There is a reason we're seeing an increase in the violence, women are increasing.
This fellow is still on the loose?
He's on the loose. There's a degree of impunity when it comes to crimes against women. Nobody seems to take those crimes seriously. And part of that signaling is right from the top, which is why this issue in the Senate is significant. And throughout our time on the road doing this documentary, we came across it again and again, evidence again and again, that women, young women, older women, everybody is tarred with the same brush and treated as if they're less than nothing, if they aspire to leadership or anything close to leadership. It's not acceptable. It simply isn't.
I agree with you. Now, when we're talking about significant barriers for women in politics and leadership in Nigeria, we've spoken about gender-based violence, we've spoken about sexual violence, but one significant barrier that I saw in the documentary is financial barriers. How significant do you think that this is when it comes to women joining different stages from the State House of Assembly all the way to the Senate?
It is very significant because unfortunately, again, our politics has evolved to become very money-centric. So, you literally buy votes, you buy people's attention when you want them to listen to you, when you invite them for events, when you want to talk to them about anything. But I think you can't discuss the importance of money in politics without talking about the weaponization of poverty. The reason that, money has become such a big thing in our politics is for the majority of voters are actually abjectly poor. And so when you're sitting and talking to someone about voting for you, and like one of my subjects in the documentary put it, Joyce Daniels, and he says to you, "Ma, I haven't eaten all morning." He's not going to hear your message. He's not going to concentrate. You will find money to give him to go and eat. And so there is a parallel thing that is happening. I am not convinced that we can have, I heard you guys talking earlier about democracy. I'm not convinced that poor people can run a democratic government. A poor country can fully, because it is so easy to buy people when they are in need. And so...
What alternative would they have if they don't do democracy?
No, I'm saying the democracy we have now is mostly bastardized because people are extremely poor. And when people are poor, their choices become limited because you can use money to actually induce them and entice them. Right? So part of what we have to do is keep fighting for the economy of this country, for people, so that people have dignity in what they do. But to speak specifically to the issue of money, so for example, in my film, Chimamanda was part of the people I sat down and interviewed because she did a fundraiser for young female politicians in the run-up to the 2023 elections, where she helped to put together resources for a few of them. And I think those are the sort of things that we have to do. Our women who are in a position to sort of use their platforms must use their platform to raise money for young women. But I also think it's important that we keep talking about these issues, keep educating people on why inclusion matters. Because sometimes when you talk about inclusion of women in politics, people think we're doing it for ourselves alone. And that's not true. The research has shown again and again, not just in politics, but literally everything, including the corporate sector, the more you involve women, the better your community does. And look at it. Look at the regression of Nigeria. Look at the trajectory. You can almost, do the numbers side by side. As we have had fewer women involvement, fewer women in public office, we have actually seen the quality of our politics, of our lives, of our generally deteriorate.
Yeah. You can probably compare it to the banking sector, where we have so many women in leadership and the banks are all having
booming. Or the creative sector.
Exactly.
Right?
I was going to bring that up actually to say, would you look at the several industries that we have in Nigeria, from our creative to our finance, and say, okay, this is one industry where you find a level of equity, I would say, equity and equality, I would say, to balance it out. And this is how it's doing. And liken that to the prosperity that having more women in politics would bring into that sector.
Absolutely. I mean, it's evident to me. I don't know why it's not evident even to the men, that if you sort of open up your political space, you're more likely to do better. We look at the Nordic countries. Look at a place like Rwanda. As much as we sort of have the, paradoxes of a Paul Kagame and everything, there's no doubt that you can see what having women in politics is doing to a place like Rwanda. It's one of the safest places. I walk the streets of Kigali at 2, 3 in the morning, and it never crosses my mind that there is anybody who's going to do any harm to me. Try that in Lagos or in Abuja. It will even be people like government packing you inside car and calling you prostitute and locking you up. So it is enlightened self-interest for men to open up the political space and allow women to be part of that journey, in my view, because they will build better societies, and better societies even for politicians. Because they don't have to walk around in these big SUVs protecting themselves with huge bodyguards because they're terrified of the people over whom they govern. That's what it is. They're now scared.
All right, let me ask you, Cordelia, part of what I heard at IREP, the film festival where your film premiered, the festival is still on, by the way, till tomorrow, was that there was a particular woman that you had wanted to be part of the documentary, but who refused or something like that. Hold on 1 minute.
Yeah.
I would like you to answer that if it is correct. The context in which I'm looking at this is the context of women supporting women. Yeah. And I would like to link that to the issue of Senator Akpoti Uduaghan and the 3 other women in the Senate, 2 of them former deputy governors, the other one, Reti Kingibe, a senator. Only 4 of them, but 3 of them. And then we had a voice vote as to a suspension, and we didn't particularly see any major dissension. We've heard from other women.
We've since heard that list is fake, by the way, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the voice vote.
Yeah, I'm saying the people that when they did the suspension, when they did the suspension, a lot of senators came out to say that the list that was...
I get that point. So what I'm saying is that none of the women has come out to say that, oh, we didn't vote in this particular... So my point, therefore, is women supporting women. We listen to Senator Itagiwa, we listen to Senator Lujimi. You've mentioned that of the First Lady. Maybe the men are not the bigger problem here. Maybe,
I think they are. I think these are it's a systemic. Okay, so let me answer the question. Starting with the candidate who didn't make it into our documentary, she actually did give us permission. I had multiple meetings with her, and we spent time and money and resources actually following her campaign. The last bit that was supposed to happen was to do a sit-down with her one-on-one, and she chickened out. And I don't think it is so much that she's not a woman for a woman. I think she was scared. Genuinely, there is fear among female politicians of what happens. I mean, look at what is going on with Natasha. Look at it. Oh, if you are not strong, why would you want to put yourself through that? So I think she was scared. She'd won an election. She'd been denied that election. And I think she thought maybe putting herself on air, talking about it, will further jeopardize, whatever standing she has. And so she basically didn't do the one-on-one interview. But we'd interviewed everybody else around her. And she had a compelling story. Unfortunately, without her talking to us directly, even from an ethical point of view, I didn't think we could tell that story. So we left her out. Nonetheless, it's a compelling film. On the issue of women not supporting women, look, this is patriarchy. There will always be women who are an army of patriarchy. They themselves have been conditioned to believe that their oppression is okay. It's a bit like, when we talk about, and I use this to explain it to men, because I think they don't get it until you do that, is that question of black and white. Racism, when you're in Europe, for example. And men, you find a few black people that sell out the rest of black people. So there were black people, for example, who voted for Trump in America. And everybody is puzzled by it. Nobody understands, why would you do that? You know what this man stands for. You know his policies are going to affect you, but you go ahead and do it because you've convinced yourself that somehow you are special, that what happens to your people will not happen to you, that somehow maybe if you give them what they want, they will protect you. And sometimes they do, especially in the issue of when it comes to men. They reward women who basically break ranks and go after other women. But I assure you, they are a minority. The only reason why this is becoming an issue is because in the first place, there are only 4 women in the Senate. And so the chances of them wanting to keep their head down, stay under the radar, protect their seats is very high. If you had 30 women in the Senate, 35 women in the Senate, 60 women in the Senate, where they felt they could hold their own, you will not be getting reactions like this. No, I'm sure of it.
Just before we wrap, before we wrap it up, everything we've spoken about speaks to deep-rooted cultural issues that I don't think are going away anytime soon. So now, for every woman out there who's saying, you know what, I want to, but clearly there's a whole list of issues you would have to go through, how would you say women can position themselves to no longer be that statistic?
Well, I mean, the truth is, like I said, women who are doing well have a responsibility to mentor, to look after, other young girls. But beyond that, I think we need to start building our own structures through which we can exercise influence. One of my subjects in the documentary was Adiola Aziz, Pa Adebanjo's daughter. She ran, she lost. But before, she became, she was the founder of Wimbase, which made a big difference to women in corporate Nigeria. So it's that sort of thing. We need to start doing things around women in politics. Maybe even a female political party. Why not? Why are you laughing?
Maybe there's something that you need to learn from the youth political party, YPP, and you're wondering youth are supposed to be in control, but then YPP is struggling to even have just a rep.
Yeah, but you have to start somewhere.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Kadiria, thank you so much. But before we go, for those who will not attend IREP, where can they see Double Minority?
So Double Minority will go on the screens on Arise as well as channels, and we will let people know the dates. It's a program funded by the MacArthur Foundation, and we're very grateful that they're there to sort of enable us tell the stories that really matter.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us on the
so
morning show. Kadiria Ahmed, always brilliant to have you.
Thank you.